Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Seated Conversations. We are happy to be back again. We're grateful for you to join us last month with Dr. Petya Hubanova, and hopefully it was a good one. It was very
Yep.
enlightening to me. We are excited for what is coming today. We have a very special guest, Dr. Natalia Sadowski, all the way over in Norway. So we're super excited to have her here. So we're first going to start out just kind of some credentials wise, your experience. And let's start with you, Dr. Sadowski, on tell us your background and your experience.
Hello to both of you. Hello to the audience as well. I'm Dr. Natalia Sadowski, and I'm really excited to be able to speak with you today. I am a medical doctor and a specialist and attending physician in internal medicine, geriatrics, palliative care, and pain medicine. So I've been working for many, many years, supporting patients of all ages, especially adults, through their journeys through illness and into health. And now I have a focus on helping people when we're nearing the end of life and making decisions and what's important for them and trying to optimize and help them not just to survive or to get over, but to really thrive no matter what part of the journey they're in.
Wonderful. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Parry and kind of tell us your background, your experience. A lot of people last episode wanted to know, the stories of everyone.
So many of you know I'm Travis Parry, and I'm the founder here at Rain International. I grew up as a serial entrepreneur, but my background for the Rain International company is I've been in manufacturing and the making of nutraceutical products for almost 20 years now, and the company that I founded and sold control of 5.5 years ago, it actually has produced over 300 brand new nutraceutical products for many new companies around on the planet. So my experience is less about, like Dr. Sadowski, going to school and practicing with people day to day, and more with the research and development part and working with PhDs, food scientists, chemists, and others in putting products together and making sure that the way that we put ingredients together and the way that we deliver them, the delivery mechanism that is used, is optimal for uptake, for absorption, for bioavailability, and is helpful for the body. So my experience is very hands-on, and that's where I gained a lot of the knowledge that I have and the love that I have for the natural health space.
Awesome. We're super excited. Thank you, you two, for giving us a brief introduction, your experience that you have, and the great credentials and everything, and knowledge that you guys can bring to. I mean, this is a Rain International podcast, but this is for everyone, right? This is a podcast for overall health, wellness, and for everybody. So today is really special because we're talking about something that's going to be announced already by the time that this podcast is put out, but it's a new product that we're coming out with at our Rain Ascend event, and that is Rain VIDA. VIDA is a vitamin D3 K2 product that is seed sourced, and so today is all focused on vitamin D, vitamin K, why we need it, why it's good for you, and mostly just the deficiencies that people have in vitamin D that occurs so often. So we're going to start it out. I'm first going to talk about and ask this question to Dr. Sadowski to start us out with, but what is the primary, give us kind of the broad scope of vitamin D, vitamin D3 specifically. So I'll turn it over to you.
Vitamin D is one of the most important vitamins we have in the body. Every cell that has a nucleus, every cell that has a center has a receptor for vitamin D. So that's one of the basic building blocks of our bodies, and it acts more like a hormone in our body. So we have vitamins, hormones, different type of signaling molecules, and we call it a hormone because it goes straight into the DNA. It can communicate directly with DNA and turn genes on as well as turn genes off. So it's regulating over 200 genes that we know about, that we've done research on. So it's doing things like supporting calcium and phosphorus absorption. So those are the two types of minerals that we need to build our bones and build our teeth. It also is going to be involved in immune modulation. So it's going to enhance not only how our bodies communicate with ourselves, our interior environment, but also our exposure to the exterior environment. Uh, some people don't know this, but it is very important in mood regulation. We have vitamin D receptors all over our brain, just like I said, in all the cells that we have, as well as helping with muscle function, muscle recovery. And a little bit less known is that's also involved in very many of the detox pathways. So liver is one of the largest organs that we have for detoxification, getting bad things out, working out, breaking down minerals and parts of our body. And that's also going to be important in inflammation. So how your body is up or down regulating the fire, the illnesses in themselves. Hmm.
So thank you for that answer. And then Travis, just a brief rundown. What is vitamin D, vitamin D3, and its primary function?
So it's interesting because Dr. Sadowski's done a very good job of explaining in a very broad and general sense what vitamin D is, specifically vitamin D3 is. And it's really interesting because we call it vitamin D. What happens is when sunlight or UVB rays hit the skin, they actually activate something in the skin that starts to create or convert these ultraviolet rays into what we call inactive vitamin D or just plain vitamin D. Then the vitamin D with calcium is taken into the liver, it's processed. From the liver, it's then sent to the kidney and processed again. And when it's done being processed by the liver and the kidney, it actually becomes what we call active D3, active vitamin D3. And it actually changes it from a vitamin into a hormone, as Dr. Sadowski talked about. So there's actually been quite a debate over the last 20 or 30 years, especially about whether we should refer to vitamin D3 as a vitamin or whether we should refer to it as a hormone. Because where it becomes super effective is once it is processed through the liver and then through the kidney, it then becomes what we call calcitriol. And that's the active form of vitamin D3. And when it becomes activated like that, it then becomes a hormone, which then signals, as Dr. Sadowski has explained so well, to all kinds of different genes and gene expressions, nearly 300. Dr. Sadowski said over 200, and she was correct in making that statement. But it does so many things. And one of the things I think people don't know, because osteoporosis and bone health was focused with vitamin D3 for the longest time, but over the last 20, 30, 40 years, some of the things that are really coming out that Dr. Sadowski alluded to, but one of the things that has become really important about D3 is its ability to signal to the overall immune system of the body to have phagocytes, T cells, B cells come running to different infections, bacteria, viruses, and it's proven to be very, very effective in combating a lot of these infections or airborne viruses and bacteria that the body faces day to day in the world.
Exactly. And as you guys just discussed, vitamin D is a lot bigger, broad than just the name of it, you know. And I think that the name of vitamin D really became prevalent with the pandemic that came, right? We all know that vitamin D scientifically was proven to be one of the things that supported the body in fighting viral things and stuff like that. So that's going to go to the next thing. I kind of want to lay this out. We live in a world that is very inside, right? In society, we're not out, you know, like our ancestors plowing the fields and being outside constantly to make our men's meat, right? We work in offices like what we're in today. We drive cars where we have a roof over our head, right? And we have air conditioning to where it's a lot more comfortable to be inside than outside most days. All sorts of stuff. And so our ability to get vitamin D from the sun has lacked tremendously with the changes of society, with the changes of our lifestyle and that. So why is vitamin D3 deficiency a common thing in the human diet or in the body? And Dr. Sadowski, if you could start out with that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jack. Just like you said, geography has a lot to do with it as well.
Yep.
I live in Norway, in Scandinavia, and we are very north. So in the summer, it's sun almost all the time, but in the winter, it's dark almost all the time. And we're not outside in the middle of the day. We're at work, we're at school, we're in buildings, like you said, in cars, in buses. There's also a weaker UVB, as you mentioned as well, Travis, that UVB is the essential way that our bodies are able to convert cholesterol into vitamin D3 in the skin. And so that's part of it, the geography. And of course, the modernistic lifestyle where we're going to be indoors most of the time. We go from house to car to house to gym to house, as you said. Other things like lifestyle, I would also like to include maybe sunscreen, clothing, covering our bodies. There's certain cultures and others that live maybe in the sun, but then they cover themselves because it is hot and they want to protect the skin. But that also can lead to vitamin D deficiency, even in a place where there may be more sunlight than you think. Another thing is also age. So as we age, our body will break down different types of proteins in the skin. It'll be more difficult for our bodies to be able to do those conversions in the skin. I'd say also diet, actually, because there's so few natural sources of vitamin D itself. And our bodies do use cholesterol. Our bodies can make cholesterol if we don't get enough of it into the diet. But of course, using other parts of other types of building blocks. But fats, cholesterol is a type of fat, so we have to make sure that we do have healthy and good sources of fats in the diet in order for having the building block to even start the process of converting vitamin D. Then there's the sun. Then there's, of course, the liver, as you mentioned, Travis, that has to do another conversion, and then another with the kidney. So there's over a billion people in the world. I've read some statistics about over 70% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D. And that has to do not just with our exposure, but for example, chronic illness. If you have a kidney disease, a reduced liver function, then your ability to convert vitamin D into not only the storage part, which is in the liver, but the active through the kidneys is going to be reduced.
Wonderful. So then I'm going to transfer this over to you, Travis, as vitamin K2.
Okay.
Okay, we're finding that vitamin D3 in itself is, they call it the calcium paradox, right? We hear that calcium is really great for you, but too much that vitamin D brings on as calcium, right? It can actually have a reverse effect of helping you. And so the finding that K2 is critical in taking with vitamin D3. But what is vitamin K2? Why is it important? And then we'll kind of have a discussion on why D3 and K2 come together so synergistically well.
It's really interesting, and I appreciate the question, Jack. Originally, vitamin K, as it was referred to, because there's vitamin K1 and K2. But originally, doctors years ago, and I think the original findings were somewhere in the early 1900s, they discovered vitamin K, and the benefit that they attributed to it, which was true, was that it was a blood coagulant. It was something that if you didn't have enough of, the blood didn't clot. So when there was cuts, there was wounds to the body, or even things that happened internally, without enough vitamin K, you could bleed to death, or you would have anemia or things like that. So originally, vitamin K was thought to be just a coagulant substance that helped the body, and people kind of dropped it and left it at that. But in more recent decades, as they've studied more about, again, rickets with vitamin D3, and then the effect on bone health, especially osteoporosis and some of these other bone diseases, what they've come to find is having enough calcium and producing that calcium, which helps strengthen and nourish the bones, along with phosphorus, especially early in life, it can be inhibited by the fact that calcium is very hard for the body to uptake. It's very hard for the body to digest and assimilate. And if it doesn't have a proper amount of K2, which helps assimilate D3 and also balance calcium, then most of the calcium that's brought into the body is just eliminated through the intestinal system. The body just simply eliminates it because it doesn't have a way of really uptaking it and binding it to the actual bones themselves, including the teeth. The teeth are another part of that is considered very important. So K2 becomes extremely important, again, in this, as Jack talked about, the calcium paradox, in being able to help D3 bind, but also in balancing the body's ability to recognize it needs the calcium, takes the calcium in, and allows those things to continue to happen without just eliminating the calcium through the digestive system and also the peristaltic system. So K2 is incredibly important.
Perfect. And Dr. Sadowski, if you could just speak on K2 with how crucial it is to absorbing D3 or vitamin D in general.
So I'd like to say a little bit about the K2. As you said, there's a K1 and a K2. And a K1 is mostly involved in blood clotting, but K2, as it is a similar vitamin, will also be partially involved in blood clotting. But what we have seen from the research is that K2 will help not just take up calcium, but deposit it in the correct areas. So when you're going to be absorbing, like you said, from the intestinal system, the dietary calcium, it's going to be taken into the bloodstream. Now, that's part of the road. It's the highway to the rest of the tissues. But K2 is going to help to get that calcium from the bloodstream and then out into the tissues. It's kind of that key that's going to open the calcium out of the blood vessels. And you think, well, what's wrong with that? If it's in the blood vessels, anything which is too much of anything is going to build up over time. So it will assist with building up of, if you do not have enough K2, you run the risk of building up calcium in tissues where it's not supposed to be. So of course you need some calcium, but if you have an excess of calcium in, for example, blood vessels and instead of bones, then you're going to be contributed to diseases like atherosclerosis, the hardening of arteries, instead of getting the calcium into bones, teeth, for example, for mood, as we discussed, and other functions. So K2 is that's the key to get calcium from then the bloodstream and out into the tissue.
So basically it's very important, to make sure that, it's that calcium paradox of
Absolutely.
calcium is great, but if you're not using it in the right way, it can actually hurt you, like you said, with blood vessels and stuff like that.
You have to make sure it's getting shuttled to the places where it's supposed to be so that it can have a good usage instead of being something that can be detrimental over time.
Yeah, so I mean, basically what you're saying is it directly affects with the circulation in a sense of
Absolutely.
getting places.
It
Awesome.
does. Mm.
So this next question is for Travis. This isn't going to really apply to Dr. Sadowski, but we're going to talk about formulation from the formulation king himself. You've helped to formulate tons of vitamin D products in your time, and so when you're formulating a product, specifically VIDA, take us through a little bit of that process quickly on what are you thinking, how are you making sure that you're using the most efficient way of vitamin D, vitamin K for absorption to reap the most benefits?
It's really important, and I appreciate the question, Jack. First of all, one thing that I failed to mention that we need to remember is that vitamin D3 is a fat-soluble substance. So you can't just put it in water. Again, it's like oil with water because it's an oil fat-soluble substance or vitamin material. Then it actually doesn't go into the bloodstream very easily, right? It really doesn't mix with water. So you notice that any kind of vitamin D3 formulation or any kind of product that you take either comes in a gel cap where the oil is contained within a capsule, or it comes in an oil form that you can drink or that you can take via a dropper. And the reason that we like it via a dropper is, first and foremost, it becomes much more bioavailable when you mix it with MCT oil or fractionated coconut oil, which is what we've done here, because vitamin D3 is already very naturally a fat-leaning substance, something that does very well in fat-soluble formulations. And there's a specific reason why you put K2 in with vitamin D3, because there's a formulation where a certain amount of K2 is necessary to get the body to accept and optimally use D3. Without that K2, the body has a very difficult time identifying separating and then absorbing that D3. And the reason for that is because, again, because it's fat soluble, as Dr. Sadowski has talked about, if it's not converted and it isn't processed through the liver and then through the kidneys, and with the help of K2 absorbed and then able to get into the bloodstream, then it's, for all intents and purposes, the body just gets rid of it. It just gets rid of it like that. So we don't want it to separate when we formulate it. So there's very to little water activity, but there's also very to little water activity because low water activity means that you inhibit bacterial and microbial growth. Without water, microbes don't grow. With water, microbes grow. So with D3, we very much, especially when we're not using any preservatives, we're not using anything like that, like sorbate or benzoate or things like that that have had studies that have shown that they can be bad for you. We use significantly less water activity because without water, microbes can't grow. So in the formulation of VIDA specifically, D3 and K2 are balanced, and they're put into an oily medium, a vehicle by which they can be used and uptake by the body, and it also keeps it in suspension nicely and evenly so that it doesn't fall to the bottom or you're not getting uneven amounts of it when you take a dosage or dropper of it. So that's some of the critical parts about the formulation of D3.
Perfect. And we're going to go to this next is we're a seed source nutrition company. That's kind of the crux of the story, right? Because as of last month, we learned why seed source nutrition is superior, right? That's what we talked about. And the main seed that we added to this is seabuckthorn seed oil. And that's actually a very Scandinavian fruit and product up there in Norway. It grows by the ocean. It's a very beautiful plant with bright orange berries on it. So we're going to talk about seabuckthorn, its benefits, why we chose it, why it's important, and what we can find from it. So, Dr. Sadowski, since I opened it up to it, there's a ton of it in Norway. Can you give us just what is seabuckthorn, fruit-wise? What can it do for you? The nutrient profile, everything. So over to you.
I'd love to tell you about it. We do have it growing over Norway everywhere. It's a hardy bush. It's from actually Asia and very harsh climates. A hardy shrub with these beautiful orange berries and quite long spikes. It comes from the Himalayas, Siberia, Tibet, and of course Scandinavia. So it's growing everywhere. You can see it outside of my window even. It was used in Tibetan and Chinese medicine for generations and generations, especially for digestion, vitality. I've even seen some information that some Russian cosmonauts were even using it in the beginning to protect their bodies from radiation when they were first going into space. Traditional medicine would also use it for wound healing and support of the mucous membranes. So what's really special with sea buckthorn is that it contains all 4 omega acids. So we don't really think about, we think, oh, omega-3 is a very important thing that also comes from like fish oil. Omega-6 is in some of the seed oils as well, omega-9. But another rare one for it is omega-7. So like 7 and 9 are usually coming from plant oils versus the 3 and 6 also from seed oils. It's rich in the vitamins as it is an oil, as the oil that we're extracting will also go back to the vitamins that are then oil soluble, A, D, E, especially. So A, D, E, and it also has inside of the orange flesh will have vitamin C. So in those things we'll have carotenoids, flavonoids, tocopherols, different types of antioxidants, different, what do we call it, not the building blocks, but more of extra keys, extra parts in chemical reactions that help to move chemical reactions on and reduce inflammation, reduce any kind of a reaction oxygen species that can cause damage, more it will cause renewal and regeneration. So in modern medicine, we're going to talk about using sea buckthorn in especially skin hydration, different types of lotions and creams, improve skin elasticity. If you're going to be taking it as a supplement, maybe in cardiovascular health, also reducing inflammation, as I said, and support gut health.
Amazing. What a super plan right there, Dr. Sadowski. Holy cow, that was a lot of information in a little berry. So
I'm really
that's
excited
awesome.
to
And one of
share it.
the critical things, right, is we're talking about vitamin D and vitamin K and how important it is. But um, I think one of the biggest reasons we added the sea buckthorn seed oil is because of the various vitamins that it does have. It has the vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E in it, and high amounts of vitamin C, which is also known to really help the immune system in strength and fighting off viral things and stuff like that. So, Trav, let's hear it from you.
I think, and this comes up a lot. It seems to come up in every discussion that we have, but sea buckthorn seeds, all seeds, and that's one of the things that is so incredible about seeds, is they contain a very balanced and an overall nutritional profile because they have to have everything within themselves that actually comes out in the bush and eventually in the fruit, the vegetable, or whatever it is that they produce. So sea buckthorn seed, as Dr. Sadowski has explained, has very powerful oil that's extracted from it when it's pressed or when it's ground. And it has those essential fatty acids. And those essential fatty acids are getting more and more and more, not only studies, but results that talk about they're good for just about everything. These essential fatty acids, 3, 6, 9, and she mentioned 7, which is very rarely talked about, are so important to overall health of the brain, health of the heart, health of the bones, health of the joints, health of just about everything. And a lot of that comes down to its anti-inflammatory properties. Whether you're talking about microbes, funguses, viruses, any of those kinds of things, inflammation is not necessarily bad. It's the body's response to things that are foreign or to something that may hurt it. So the inflammatory response is absolutely needed. People that have autoimmune diseases don't have proper inflammatory responses. But the issue that we have with our modern Western diet and with the pollutants and toxins that are in the air more than ever before, that are in the water and the ground more than ever before, is that we as humans now suffer from what we refer to as chronic inflammation. So the body is constantly on alert, constantly sending out things to defend, attack, take care of. And what's happening is, without taking these anti-inflammatory, these great things like sea buckthorn oil or D3, which is kind of a hormone modulator or signaler, the issue is the body now is having a very difficult time differentiating between what's really a foreign invader that's bad for the body and what's just something that's normal that the body needs that it doesn't need to go attack. So chronic inflammation, and a lot of the studies that are coming out more and more, is responsible for a lot of heart disease, is responsible for a lot of these neuroses that are so terrible right now. They're responsible for a lot of things as far as our immune systems are concerned, and sea buckthorn oil and other seeds, along with D3 and K2, are incredible at helping the body to modulate the inflammatory response.
Wonderful. And I was kind of doing some research before this, and I went on to Amazon and typed in vitamin D3 K2. And from what I could find, I could not find the combination of D3 K2 and sea buckthorn seed oil or sea buckthorn at all. And so it really just shows that, you talked about the formulation process of creating the best product, the most viable one that can benefit with absorption is really what's important in obtaining everything. So because of absorption, and we want to talk about cardiovascular health. Everyone has a heart. I hope everyone has a heart, right? If you don't, go love someone, give them a hug. Um, and we talked about the rare omega-7, which is very rare, but it's been known to really be beneficial for cardiovascular health. Very beneficial. So I want to talk about how inflammation, what you talked about, cholesterol levels, how all these synergistically help the cardiovascular with blood flow and things, which we are finding more and more than we already knew was important on how important the cardiovascular health is. So if you guys want to both speak on that, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Sadowski to kick it off, and if you just want to follow and talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very important that we do speak about cardiovascular health. I'd like to go back to the analogy that I did mention when we were taking up calcium from our food, from our intestine, that the calcium, the nutrients, any kind of nutrients is going to go into the bloodstream. And in the bloodstream, it's going to have reactions to the different endothelial wall, how it's going to be reacting with what's already in the bloodstream, how the wall thickness is. Is there a lot of sickness already? Is there a lot of fat? Is there a lot of toxic load inside of the body? So we do need antioxidants. We do have a different lifestyle than we did even 50 years ago. We have a different ability to absorb nutrients from the food that we're eating, from the exposures that we have. We've never known this level of toxins and environmental toxins and the movements we have being indoors, exposures. So we do have to have, we have to think logically. We have to think, how do we take care of ourselves best? And our cardiovascular system is the pump, but it's part of a whole system. We are a holistic being. We are all the bacteria, we're the viruses, we're the fungus that lives inside of us. We're all of the organs and how they communicate with each other. So having a good nutritional basis, making sure that we're getting the vitamins like vitamin D3, like the nutrients like we were talking about, A, D, E, and K, and all of the other phytonutrients, then we're supporting not just the cardiovascular system, the movement of nutrients in, but also taking toxins, detoxifying every cell, every process we do has to be detoxified. Every medication we take has to be broken down and taken out the trash. So we're supporting both getting the nutrients in and removing the trash.
And I mean, just to support what Natalia has just said, essential fatty acids. A lot of people have been convinced that the only way to get essential fatty acids is through fish, right? Salmon, krill has become very, very critical. Well, one of the things that that was discovered because for D3 100 years ago, is that the issue with rickets, and that's really where D3 got its start, was the bone disease rickets that would appear in children was a direct result of moms that had vitamin D3 deficiency when they were pregnant. So they weren't passing that vitamin D3 to the child, and so the child was born and it was vitamin D3 deficient. And without that vitamin D3, it can't manage calcium appropriately. So it doesn't. You only build bone structure when you're younger, up to about the age of 30. After the age of 30 or 40, all of a sudden bone structure just continues to get lighter and lighter and lighter. So if you don't take care of your bones with calcium modulation when you're young, when you can actually build bone and strengthen bone, then you have incredibly much higher odds when you're older of having bone diseases like osteoporosis, brittle bone.
Brittle bones, rickets would be
Yeah.
a brittle bone disease, and the same thing with osteoporosis. As we get older, we do need to do weight-bearing exercise in order to have our body stimulate the need to build bone instead of break down bone. We have osteoblasts that break down bone, osteoclasts kill bone, osteoblasts build bone, but those also need building blocks. They need signal molecules. They need a healthy environment that is a growth environment instead of a breakdown and illness environment. And vitamin D and other nutrients we've been talking about are definitely going to support us in that building process, because if we don't build, we break down. If we're not building and regenerating, then we're breaking down and getting sicker.
Yeah. And I appreciate what Dr. Sadowski has just said, because she introduced again, she talked about the whole being. We talk about the body in individual systems sometimes, and we talk about individual vitamins and individual minerals and individual things, but overall, the body is a complete and coordinated system that works as the greatest miracle that's ever been created in the universe. And that body, it's shocking how critical it is for it to be balanced, how critical it is to have just the tiniest amounts of hormones and oils and signaling like D3 for it to operate and take care of itself. effectively. One of the things that I think that we need to go back and mention, and Dr. Sadowski has brought it up, is that recent studies in the last probably 10 years are starting to show that people that exercise regularly might produce more vitamin D3. The body itself might be able to produce more vitamin D3 on its own from regular exercise. On top of that, the body was designed to work, as Dr. Sadowski has talked about. And we see that even in our homes, our cars, or other things. Things that don't get used, they don't actually last longer. Most of the time, they oxidize, they rust, or they deteriorate faster. The body, the bones, all these things that we're talking about with D3 and K2 and essential fatty acids, all of that is only great if the body can use it and take care of itself appropriately. So again, the body needs to work. The body needs to have weight-bearing exercise. The body needs to have aerobic exercises. And all of that will, combined with good supplementation. And I think the other thing, and I know I'm saying a lot, so I apologize, but 70% of the food that is consumed on the earth, not just the United States, on the earth today is processed. Well, 70% of the food being processed means that things are being processed out of the food. Okay? You don't process things into food, you process things out of something. When you process something by just basic understanding, denotation and connotation, you are processing it from this state down to a state that is less complicated, more simple, but also not as good for you. And our food in the world today is extremely processed. Again, that lends to the critical importance of the seed nutrition story. Seeds have not been processed. They've never been processed. Seeds are in the original form that they were for millions of years, and they still are. Those seeds continue to be as unprocessed as anything on this planet. And that's where we are missing a lot of the nutrients that people in days gone by, in decades and centuries past, used to get so much more of these essential nutrients, minerals, and other body fueling nutrients from their diets, from how hard they worked, from their active lifestyles. And we, as a society, have processed a good portion of those things out.
Yeah. And I want to kind of go, I didn't have this in the set questions at the list, but one of the things is recently we were at my brother's, your son's graduation, and in this school that he graduated in, there was a ton of mental health people, right, with master's degree and therapy and stuff like that. And one of the things that studies are finding is there's such thing as seasonal depression, right, which means usually wintertime, you're not outside, it's dark, right, and you feel the symptoms of depression. One of the things that science is proving is that vitamin D3 deficiency can inhibit that seasonal depression thing. Or if you have it, it can actually help with cognitive function, with developing the dopamine in your head, right? And giving you that feeling of happiness, of joy, and all that. So I want to briefly talk about, because it's such a huge issue that is facing the world, is mental health. What D3, healthy diet, exercise, like you said, what can those do for you to help with mental health and things like that? So Dr. Sadowski, if you want to briefly talk about that, and then Travis, you follow.
Thank you. That's a very thought-provoking question and very important. It's nice that you bring up seasonal affective disorder. I remember that even when I was a child, we talked about the winter time. I would say that that's almost all year affective disorder now. We spoke about staying indoors, in cars, in buildings, in front of screens. And while before we were more outside interacting with nature, now we aren't. So the seasonal affective disorder, I would say, is a chronic affective disorder of the lack of sunlight. That's one part about mental health, where we're not interacting with the environment as we are evolutionarily scaped to do. We've been on this earth for a while, and we do know that our bodies need sun, need nutrients, need nature. We talked also, you were mentioning motion and exercise. So what does exercise do? Exercise is going to bring blood to parts of our body, to our muscles, to our brain, to our gut, bring more blood. And what's in that blood? Hopefully, good nutrients, good nutrition, all those building blocks that are going out to the tissues in order to build. But also, as the blood goes past the tissue, it's going to be taking that garbage. I'm going to call it the garbage, taking the garbage back out so that we can eliminate it. So exercise, if we're going to be having stress, bad nutrition, ultra processed food, already the food that we grow in the ground has less nutrients because our earth has less nutrients that it used to have before. We're giving it in fertilizer. We don't even give earth nutrients the way that it used to have before. All these things are going to cause our bodies to have less of those building blocks in. And then it'll be harder for our body to take out the garbage out. So what does that do? It's going to not just affect the brain and our mood, but in a large position, a large portion, it's going to absolutely affect our brain, affect our mood, affect our concentration, affect our sleep in, sadly, a negative way, and then affect our muscle strength, our immunity, our ability to process the foods in order to build our resilience, our wound healing. All those things are going to be compromised. So we have to get the good nutrients in. We have to have it's logical. It's very logical. I try to tell patients, it's not hocus pocus. You got to give your body good things, whole foods, and like you're mentioning seeds. I tell people, like, when have you eaten a seed last? That's like nature's package of everything is in one seed, where the plant will grow from, think about a huge tree, grow from what? One little seed. And are you growing weeds in your garden, or are you growing bearing fruit and other things? So it's really important. It's logical. It's beautiful to think about, okay, let's go back to the basics. What does our body need? It needs good nutrition. It needs to move. It needs to sleep, which is where we're going to have our rest and reparation processes during our sleep. Most of our garbage, taking out the garbage, happens while we're sleeping. Also in our brain, we have a lymphatic system in the brain, the glymphatic system, taking out the trash. We need to have good social relations, that's stress reduction, purpose, and not do the things that we know are going to affect our bodies negatively. So if we go to those basics, so much of illness, chronic illness, depression, sadness, and the pressure on society would be a lot lighter if we just went back to the basics.
And this is a very passionate topic for me. Those of you that know me or know me or listen to me speak at different times, mental illness is it's a plague. We talk about COVID-19 and that terrible virus, and it was terrible. I will tell you that the greatest damage it's done was not done during the 2 or 3 years that we were shut in. The greatest damage that it's doing is still happening now. And what it did is it accelerated this separation between humans and the sun, nature, and other humans. We are herd creatures. We are not meant to be solitary creatures. But what we've done is we've gotten more and more people that have gotten to a rhythm and used to just staying inside, because we were pretty well locked inside and forced inside for 2 or 3 years. And because of that, we have especially a younger generation that's growing up that spends all of their time on their phones, spends all of their time on tablets or smart screens or smart TVs. And the damage that's being done, they don't even know. They don't even understand that being in the sun, I call it the sun itself. Just to think about the sun, the sun is a happy vitamin. Sunlight is just happiness to me. But on top of that, it's interrupted their circadian rhythm for sleep. They're in the dark or they're in rooms so often that the sun is incredibly important to helping us determine when we should be awake and when we should go to sleep. And when your sleep is as bad as it is for a lot of these younger people now, and especially because they drink energy drinks and are just full of stimulants and caffeine, then the body doesn't know when to sleep. It doesn't know when to stay awake. It doesn't have a chance to repair itself, to have downtime, to heal itself. And on top of that, we're not spending time with other people. And so we have, I think, a greater pandemic on our hands, and I think it's going to continue to increase until we get the word out that there is an issue with D3 deficiency. There's an issue with people getting out of their house. There's an issue with people getting away from their phones. There's an issue with people getting away from social media and giving their minds a break. There's an issue with your friends or followers on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or all the rest of that. Those are fake friends. Those aren't real friends. That's not real engagement. That's not helping the mind. It's not lifting the mind. We share things with one another. We need each other. We need to be together. We need to be outside. We need the sun. Our bodies need to work. They're meant to work. They work better when they are busy consistently. And so the message from Rain has always been that seed source nutrition is original nutrition. That it's the tradition that the universe started with, that it's the greatest, most perfected nutrition that's ever been and ever will be. But that is all secondary to the greatest miracle that's ever been created, and that is the human body, the human soul. And no matter what happens, if we can't help other people, if people don't, not just their bodies taken better care of, but if they don't feel wholer, feel weller, feel a little bit more energized, feel a little confidence, then all of that stuff, people don't care. They don't care. And so this message with VIDA, with D3, with K2, exercise, being together, and what this COVID pandemic has done to the world, we need to gather together like we're doing today and scream and shout and proclaim every single day to every human being on the earth, your body needs these things. Your mind needs these things. You need to leave your home. You need to come and enjoy being with other people. You need to get in the sun. You need to walk. Pick things up, work in your yard, have a garden. You need to be well, and that's critical, and it's so important.
No, and I think we're we're running out of time here, but I think that that's the message that we went deep into vitamin D, vitamin K, into seabuckthorn, and all circulation systems in that, the mental health and how our diets and that can really affect our mood and help our mood. Those are all things that we discussed today, but I think the main message that Dr. Sadowski, that Travis, myself, Rain, is not just fixing one thing, but the whole wellness of your life and body. And that's really the goal of what we do and why we do it, right? So we're going to close up. I'm going to give you guys last final remarks, give you guys each 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. Just talk about overall vitamin D, the benefits, why you should take it. And we're going to start with Travis, then we'll finish with Dr. Sadowski.
D3 is as important to take every single day as vitamin C. It's as important to take every day as essential fatty acids, and those are critical that you take every single day. The vitamin D3 deficiency in the world, and we didn't even get into melanin and skin pigmentation and other things like that that also can inhibit UVB rays and the ability to convert and create D3. But women, men, children, vitamin D3, K2 are essential, and a good portion of the world is deficient, especially above the 42nd latitude and below a certain latitude below the equator. And that's how this got discovered. It's called the sunlight vitamin, right? It's called it shine a little brighter. If you don't take sufficient amounts every day, studies show that there are significant negative impacts. And frankly, all of us at Rain International, we should be supplementing with D3 and K2, and so should our family members every single day.
Dr. Sadowski, closing things. Thanks, Trav.
Thank you, Travis. I'd like to close with saying that health is about synergy. Just as you said, Travis, alone we survive, but together we thrive. The
Yeah.
same thing with the nutrients. Alone, it's just one part of the orchestra, but together you have a whole symphony. To speak again about D3, it is not an isolated nutrient. You need it for making bone health, mental health, mood, immunity, and that K2 is that special key that helps to get it out into the tissue. Especially, we didn't speak about this, but there's a formula called MK7. It's the little bit longer lasting formula of K2, and that is essential in order to get those nutrients, that calcium, that vitamin D, the key, the nutrients out into the tissues where it's going to be rebuilding and regenerating. We talked also about seabuckthorn. So seabuckthorn is a survivalist plant. It is survived and has grown up in the most harshest of conditions, but those harsh conditions have helped that plant develop and store those nutrients in the seeds, in the flesh, that are going to pass that resilience to us. So
And
resilience.
Jack, I just want to take 10 more seconds because this needs to be addressed because we live in a world that's getting heavier, okay? That has more fat deposits than it's ever had before. And because D3 is a fat soluble vitamin that needs to be processed, I would be remiss, I think, if I didn't say that even if you're spending time outside or you're supplementing, if you carry a lot of extra weight, that D3 is going to be deposited in your fat. It is. And it's still not going to get to the active portions that really help you. So we need to also be very careful and help people understand that obesity is really, it's almost the antithesis of taking up good D3. You can have a lot of D3, you can have a lot of it in your body, but it's stored in fat deposits. And until that fat is burned, it doesn't help the body. It doesn't do any good. So I do want to end with reminding everybody that even if you're doing some of the things that you need to do to supplement with D3, to get it from sunlight or other things like that, if you're heavier, and please don't take this as me trying to be judgmental in any way, this is just the science. But people that are heavier or obese, a lot of times, almost the majority of the time, they're D3 deficient because the D3 is being stored in their fat deposits and it's not being released into the blood and it's not being used as a signaling hormone that needs to happen. So they're sick more often. They don't feel as well. They have more mental illness. They have more cardiovascular disease. And all of those things seem to make sense with, some of the things that come out as far as chronic obesity is concerned. So,
It's a very important point that you bring up there, Travis. I say overweight but undernourished.
yeah.
You're not getting the proper nutrients, maybe high processed foods. And what do? They process out the good nutrients, process out the husks, process out the vitamins, and put in fillers to prevent oxidation, right? Put in water, but you have to prevent the microbial growth. So you're putting in other things that you're not supposed to have in your body, you're not supposed to have in your food. So when I talk about nutrition with my patients, I say, go back to the basics. Real food that you can see. It came from nature. There's no barcode. It's not from a box. It comes from nature. And if you're eating mostly things that come directly from nature, that's a really great start. It's a really, really great start to tell your body, this is time to regenerate. We're building now. We're coming out of what's the darkness and coming into the light.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, friends, this was fun. Thank you. Thanks for everyone that's watching and a guest on. We are excited to have Dr. Sadowski on board. She's going to be speaking to you at Ascend, and we'll be seeing more of her around. And tune in for the month of October. We have another exciting guest coming. And again, thank you, Dr. Sadowski, for your time, for your expertise. Travis, thank you for your time as well. And again, we wish you just the best of days. So thanks, everybody. See you next month.
Oh, Dr. Sadowski, what a blessing and privilege to speak with you.